More defensive breakdowns and a sixth straight loss. Just when this team needed it most, they find ways to lose. We'll break it all down and preview a big weekend of action. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Wow, 6 in a row lost by the New York Islanders. We'll get to that and what went wrong. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. I will keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. But not easy to talk about it at this time. Islanders lose their sixth in a row to the Detroit Red Wings in what really was a must game. Final score 6-3. It was 5-1 before the Islanders had a too little too late rally, and then an empty netter finalizes it at 6-3. And after watching this game, and I tweeted this out, this team, the way they've been playing most of the season, but especially in this 6-game losing streak, which now has completely negated the 6-game winning streak that they had right before and just a day or two after the trade deadline. But here's the thing. This team is like the anti-Barry Trotz coached team. Under Barry Trotz, this team was not as talented as a lot of the teams they ended up beating, but they outworked you. They were sound positionally. They knew exactly where on the ice they had to be, especially in their own zone, in order to prevent the opposition from getting quality scoring chances. You could say the Islanders were boring, and a lot of people did, but you couldn't say they didn't hustle, that they didn't have heart, that they weren't determined and hardworking, and that they weren't playing positionally sound, smart, fundamental hockey. This is the opposite, this team right now, of all of those things that made those teams 3-4 years ago when they went to the conference finals in back-to-back years. This team is the opposite of those teams, even though so many of the players are the same. You'll look at this game against the Red Wings, and defensively, it was a disaster, okay? The Islanders gave up 6 goals on 24 shots. And you look at that number, and, you know, 5 of those goals given up by Sorokin. I mentioned the empty netter. So Ilya Sorokin in this game had a .783 save percentage. And you could sit there and say, oh, well, he must have had a terrible game. Well, he didn't have a great game. But anyone want to blame Ilya Sorokin for this performance? How many of those goals were tips, rebounds, breakaways, easy, wide open players. Each goal that the Islanders allowed, yeah, okay, I'll give you Sorokin let up one soft goal. But each goal that the Islanders gave up, it was like its own little disaster story. And different players were out of position or not playing right or not doing well each time the goal was given up. But it was always defensive breakdowns. And it was frustrating as heck to watch players that, usually you rely on. I mean, Ryan Polak and Alexander Romanov, that should be your shutdown defensive pair based on the pairings we had in this game. That should be the guys you can count on defensively. Well, guess what? Alexander Romanov was a -3 in this game. He was out of position. Polak was out of position. Everybody at one point, the defensemen would not pick up players, and then the forwards would not pick up the players that the defensemen left uncovered. It was embarrassing. It was, this is a team that is supposed to be difficult to play against and hardworking, and they were none of those things in this game. The effort, the intelligence, the vision, the hockey IQ, especially defensively, it just wasn't there. And that's how you can outshoot Detroit 36-24 in this game and honestly say that the Islanders were thoroughly outplayed until it was too late. There were no great answers for this team. Yeah, couple of lineup changes. Sebastian Aho sits, Robert Bortuzzo in. Bortuzzo wasn't bad. Took a penalty, was a -1, but no worse defensively than anybody else. Matt Martin sits. You put Pierre Engvall back in the lineup. That, okay. Engvall on the third line with Pajot and Holmstrom. Hudson Fasching moves up to the second line with Barzal and Lee. Kyle McLean moves to left wing on the fourth line with Casey Cizikas and Cal Clutterbuck. Who benefited the most from these changes? I think it was Hudson Fasching, who had 3 really good scoring chances in the first 30 minutes of the game. Didn't end up converting any of them, but at least he got some chances. He seemed a little more alive and involved in that respect. Separating Bo and Barzy, look, I get it. If I'm Patrick Roy, I'm desperate. I'm trying almost anything, but it isn't working. And Bo and Barzy together is, to me, the essential part of, your top line. And then to just add a little insult to injury, your top line of Horvat, Nelson, and Palmieri. Horvat -3, Palmieri -3, Nelson -3. So that worked. Brock had 1 shot on goal. He was lazy as heck on one play. Engvall knocked off the puck really easily on another play. Nelson and Lee both struggling on some of those goals with defensive pickups. I mentioned Polak. It was like an epidemic out there. And nobody, and I do mean nobody, was exempt. In this entire game, only one defenseman was even, and that was Mike Riley. Among the forwards, it was Pajot, Engvall, and Holmstrom, Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck, even. But boy, it was too little too late. And you just got to question at this point in the season, do these players want it enough? Do they care enough? Are they invested in winning enough? Things are going to change, or at least they should, after this finish to the season. we've got more to discuss on today's show. We're going to talk about what else can be done because amazingly enough, the Islanders are not mathematically eliminated, although it would be a miracle if they came back and made a run and got back into the playoff picture. But we're going to have our hero and go to the game. We're going to talk a little bit more about some things that need to change. And then, of course, we'll preview both Saturday's game against the Jets and Sunday's game against the Devils. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, well, an Islanders forward who won 4 straight Stanley Cups with the team. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the ice, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find a candidate with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Hero and go to the game. Boy, a toughie to find a hero. I can't say that there was one. I'm going to go with Mike Riley only because he scored a goal. He was even in the plus minus, and he gave the team maybe a little jump. But that is, again, I'm trying to find somebody, but by default, I'm going with Mike Riley. As far as go to the game, team defense, straight up, no questions asked. As a team, they were deplorable. They were horrible. They had just breakdown after breakdown. The season is on the line. It was, win or really start to understand that you're free falling and you may not be able to get back into the playoff race. It is getting late early, as they say. Islanders now have 13 games left on their schedule. They are 5 points behind Detroit, 6 points behind Philadelphia. And it's just, Washington is ahead of them. Buffalo is just 2 points behind. The Devils are just 1 point behind. It is not going to be easy. This team needs a heart transplant. And whether it's because they're too comfortable with the long-term contracts and being here so long, or whether they are just tuning out Patrick Roy, or they're just not fast enough and skilled enough, and the roster is flawed and not deep enough, changes have to be made. And I'll say it right now. The reason this team is where they are, primarily, the responsibility lies with Lou Lamoriello. And this team needs a change in philosophy right now. And if Lou Lamoriello won't change his direction and philosophy of how he's running this team and putting this roster together, then ownership has to say, you know what? You've maxed out this group. It maxed out 2-3 years ago on the back-to-back trip to the conference finals. Either you break this group up and start to retool, or we need to hire a new GM who will do that. That is going to be on ownership. That is what ownership needs to do this offseason. The question is, will they do it? And the answer is, I hope so. But I'll believe it when I see it. Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, the New York Islanders hosting the Winnipeg Jets. Don't forget, you could hear every minute of this game with the Islanders' hometown radio broadcast on SiriusXM. Just go to the SXM app and do a search for Islanders. Winnipeg Jets right now in a dogfight with Dallas and Colorado for first place in the Central Division. They are all tied with 93 points as of the time of this broadcast. Winnipeg, their last game, they lost in New Jersey to the Devils 4-1. That happened on Thursday night, and it certainly doesn't help the Islanders at all because the Devils pick up 2 points. And the other bad news is that the goalie was Laurent Brosseau, so Connor Hellebuck is almost certainly going to face the New York Islanders on Saturday. Hellebuck, one of the elite goalies in the league, 2.30 goals against, 923 save percentage. The Jets, between Brosseau and Hellebuck, number 1 in the league in goals allowed, best defensive team in the league, middle of the pack in goals scored. Gee, that formula sounds familiar if you go back a couple of years and talk about the Islanders. Have a top 5 defense, have a below average to average offense, and win when it counts. Special teams, well, the Islanders could take advantage. The power play for Winnipeg, 21st, 19.5% success rate. The PK, 21st, 77.7% success rate. Kyle Connor leads the team with 30 goals. He's a Cy Young Award candidate, only 18 assists. Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers also passed the 20-goal mark, but Winnipeg getting it done. Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Alex Iafallo, that's the top line. Sean Monahan, Nikolai Ehlers, Tyler Toffoli are the second line. Adam Lowry centers former Islander Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton on the third line. And from left to right on the fourth line, Morgan Barron, David Gustafsson, and Vladislav Nemestikov. On defense, Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello are the top pair. Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk, the second pair, and Dylan Sandberg and Colin Miller. The third pair, we mentioned the goalies, Hellebuck and Brosseau. Gabriel Velarde out of the lineup as of right now. We'll see if he is able to return for Saturday's game. Look, Winnipeg, we know they're a tough team. 93 points. They are fighting for first place, as I mentioned. They're going to be up for this game. They need this game. Already in the first meeting between these two teams, which happened in Winnipeg back in mid-January, the Jets beat the Islanders by a final score of 4-2. And this game won't be easy. They are a better team on paper than the Detroit Red Wings. Now, keep in mind, this is their 4th game of a 5-game road trip, and that may have them a little tired, but I'm grasping at straws because the way the Islanders are playing right now, if they don't put together a better performance, it won't matter that they're a little tired, because the Islanders are playing like a team that is always tired and always a step behind, and it's so frustrating to watch. We have got more to get to on today's show. Sunday, the Islanders will face the New Jersey Devils. We'll have a full preview of that game coming up, plus our Islanders birthday of the day. All that still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Look, I know what it's like when, one of your Final Four teams gets knocked out in the first 2 rounds. Well, you can go on FanDuel and keep yourself invested in the tournament from start to finish. So right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. Heck, you could even pick who's going to win it all. And hey, Islander fans, you can check out the odds for the Islanders this weekend against Winnipeg and New Jersey. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So after playing Winnipeg on Saturday, the New York Islanders will end up playing the New Jersey Devils on Sunday. 5 o'clock Eastern time start for that game. The Devils, winners of their last 2. Now, New Jersey will also be on a back-to-back. They face the Ottawa Senators at home on Saturday. In fact, it will be a Saturday night game that starts at 7 o'clock. So the Islanders will be, that much more rested by a few hours, although the Islanders are playing in the dreaded matinee. The Devils starting to come around, as I mentioned, winners of 2 in a row, 3 of their last 5, and some of the changes they made at the trade deadline certainly have helped, talking about their goaltending especially. This has been a disappointing season for the Devils. We're not going to mince words. Injuries have been a big part of it. Jack Hughes has missed a lot of time. He's missed 16 games so far. Nico Hischier has missed time as well. He's missed 11 games. Timo Meier has missed time. Andre Palat. You go through the list of some of the better players on this team, and they've missed time. We look at the line combinations for the Devils. Hischier, Meier, and Jesper Bratt, the top line. Bratt has been really good against the Islanders in recent seasons. Eric Huala, Jack Hughes, and Alexander Holtz, the second line. Tomas Nosek, Andre Palat, and Dawson Mercer are the third line. And then Chris Tierney centering Curtis McDermott and Curtis Lazar on the fourth line. On defense, Luke Hughes and Nick DeSimone are the top pair. Kevin Ball and Brendan Smith, the second pair. And then Santeri Hataka and Simon Nemec are the third pair. The goalies as of now, Jake Allen and Kaapo Kähkönen, completely different pairing than what they've had most of the year. On IR, Nathan Bastian. On IR, Dougie Hamilton. Michael McLeod is out. Cal Foote is out. John Marino, day-to-day. Jonas Siegenthaler, day-to-day. So the injuries still adding up for the New Jersey Devils. For the Islanders, slowing down a fast New Jersey Devils team and not letting them go through the neutral zone and attack to get into the Islanders zone with a head of speed is going to be important. And then don't give up open rebounds and open tap-ins. And, if the Islanders can't clean up their defense, it doesn't matter who they're playing. These are NHL players, and they will find a way to embarrass you. The Devils are talented, and as of right now, the Devils I mean, by the time this game is played on Sunday, they very well could be ahead of the New York Islanders in the standings. So, yeah, after this 6-game losing streak, anything less than 3 points in these 2 games, not going to work for the New York Islanders. No doubt about that. The playoff hopes on paper only, unless they start really putting together some wins. So we'll see what ends up happening. Just difficult to watch this team struggle the way they are. We know they can play better. We saw them play better during the 6-game winning streak, but bottom line, the way this team is put together is flawed. Changes have to be made. And my message, if you don't like hearing that, if you're the New York Islanders, prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. Go out there and show me what you can do and put some wins together. We got a great Islanders birthday of the day. Saturday will be the 67th birthday of former Islanders forward John Tonelli, the Milton, Ontario native, of second-round pick by the Islanders in 1977. Actually spent 3 years in the WHA with the Houston Aeros and had back-to-back 20-goal seasons playing in Houston. Then joined the Islanders for the 78-79 season and played well, was a member of all 4 Islanders Stanley Cup winning teams, put together some really solid offensive production in those playoff runs. His best season offensively, well, how about this one? 84-85, 42 goals and 100 points. He also topped 30 goals in 81-82 and 82-83. Was traded to the Calgary Flames late in the 85-86 season, later played for the LA Kings and Chicago Blackhawks before a brief stint in Quebec with Les Nordiques. In his NHL career, 1,028 games, add 224 more in the WHA, 325 goals, 836 points, 911 penalty minutes, 172 playoff games. Think about that. 40 goals, 115 points, and 200 penalty minutes. Here is a guy who really was a winner and a great New York Islander. His best game as an Islander, look, there were some big moments last year. I know we did one of them that was a postseason moment, but we're going to go with his best regular season game today. January 6th, 1981, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Can't call it the old barn because at this point it wasn't even 10 years old. But the visiting team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yuri Shra, the goalie for the Leafs, Chico Resch in between the pipes for the Islanders. And this was John Tonelli's greatest game. Tonelli opened the scoring midway through the first. Bossy and Trottier the assists. Then in the second, with the Islanders up 2-0, Tonelli from Dave Langevin and Mike Bossy, 3-0 Islanders. The Leafs make it 3-1, and we go to the third period. Tonelli from Bossy and Stefan Pearson. That completes the hat trick. 2 quick goals by the Leafs, Ron Ellis, Rick Vave, but then John Tonelli, his 4th of the game. Trottier and Bossy with the assists. And then in the final minute, an empty netter, his 5th of the game. Mike Bossy, the only assist on that one. Islanders beat the Maple Leafs 6-3, but for John Tonelli, 5 goals on 6 shots. Yeah, he had the game winner. He was a +4. All 5 goals coming at even strength. Chico Resch, 28 saves. A big win for the Islanders. Mike Bossy in this game, always known as a sniper, 6 assists for Michael Dean Bossy, 5 goals for John Tonelli. Just a great game for Tonelli, who was clutch, who was hardworking, and a great New York Islander. So, again, happy birthday a day early to JT. Wanted to also just remind everybody that we are trying to get a little get together at an Islanders game in April. And if you're interested in joining us and meeting some of our fellow Locked On Islanders family members, go to islandersnightout.wordpress.com. Need to do that by the end of the weekend, but leave your name and information there, and we'll get in touch and try to set this up. And yeah, you could bring friends, family members, but we're all going to sit together, and all the people that we've, messaged and left comments for and had in the chat room, we're all going to get together and root on the Islanders in person. I want to thank everybody who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're back on Monday. We'll review both of these weekend games, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.